What's up, y'all? I'm Josh, the student pastor at SciLife Church and the Movement, and we are here with DJ. He's our intern from last summer. He's awesome. You know him, you love him. We're excited to have him hanging out with us this week. DJ, why don't you tell them what we're doing?
So we are going to have a conversation today about what it looks like to stay connected in the midst of a pandemic or quarantine or social distancing, whatever you've been doing. But the best way
being an introvert, really just in general.
Exactly. But the best way to do it, the only way we know how to do it, is to explode this watermelon.
She gone.
This one in particular.
Listen, DJ, why don't you share with this is actually really serious. This watermelon did something to DJ, and he's out for vengeance. DJ, what did he do to you?
So when I was 5,
it's a very old watermelon.
When I was 5, I waited day and night for this thing to grow. The problem is, it didn't start growing till I was 9. And at that point, I didn't care anymore. I think we've all had something in our life where...
Apparently watermelons take about 13 years to grow.
Yes.
And now you know.
It didn't show up when you wanted it to show up, so... All
right, so we're going to be having a conversation about staying connected while making this happen. So DJ, let's go ahead and start. And so what's it been like for you just in quarantine during this whole situation?
So for me, I am as extroverted as it gets, so it has been horrible. I have mastered the skills of talking to walls, but on a serious note, it has been hard. Like, relationships are gone, just because the people aren't right there, and texting and Zoom calling has not been enough.
Yeah, and if I'm shooting straight, like, I mean, some of us are kind of just over Zoom. Like, it's not the same as being in person, and I've really been wrestling through. So what's it look like for us to be the church? Like, how can we be connected? How can we love each other well in the midst of this? And it's been really hard. Like, I've just found myself being super isolated, not in community, at least in the way that I know and I love, and it's been tough. And so what do we do? Is the question that we're going to wrestle with. We don't want to just sit in the now and the situation that we're in. We want to press forward and grow and mature. And so what do we do?
There's also that piece of, like, my needs, right? Like, I want them to be met. And so when I'm not receiving what I need, it has caused me to isolate or feel not cared for, even though the heart might not be there. But myself personally, it's just... how do I meet those needs? How do I stay connected? How do I not isolate?
Got some ants on me right now. It's not good. Yeah, so thinking about the disciples, right? Because the disciples this isn't a foreign concept to the Bible. Like, there were sicknesses, there were plagues all the time. And so how did the disciples respond? How did they stay connected? They didn't even have Zoom. And so what did they do? Or even, like, what would Jesus do? What would he do right now? Like, what do you think, DJ?
Actually, a question I've been wrestling with. When you watch the disciples, I guess there's a trust piece there, right? You have to trust the people that you are around, that you can be around for the time being. And so the disciples did a good job at focusing on who was right in front of them. Who could they love that was right in front of them, and how do they love the way Jesus would? And so I think Jesus was super good at that. He was present and what he felt God was doing in his life and where God had him in the moment. Lost one.
Yeah, I think the hard part is, DJ, this is a time where people, like, serving people is even more difficult because how can I serve you if you don't want to be around me, right? Like, because, like, you could have coronavirus, I might not, I don't want to be around you, or vice versa. Like, what if I'm trying to help and I have it? And so I think that one thing that I want us to focus on as a movement, but even just like me focusing on is, okay, so how can I serve and lead within my family? So, like, I'm giving more time with my family, in my home. Students, like, you're with your parents, and some of you, time is running out for that, right? Like, it's not a long game. We just had a group of seniors graduate. We've got more seniors coming in that eventually, hopefully, like, God willing, will graduate. And so how can we, DJ, like, how have you been serving your family?
It's honestly a blessing, right? It's forced me to be more intentional with my family because I'm very on the go. It's very easy for me to focus on the people that I'm in community with, that I'm in life with every single day. And so when those people want to hang out, when those people want to get together, that's my go-to. But in this season, I've been forced to sit at home with my family. And force hasn't been a bad thing, right? It's forced me to have conversations that have been really, really good. I've seen relationships grow with my mom, with my uncle in particular, in ways that I would have never pictured before. Honestly, things that I probably would have been scared of before, but when you're in a space with someone for so long, naturally, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with them. And so it's made me very, very intentional, again, with what's right in front of me. And how can I love those people that God had put in my life from the beginning?
Yeah, and that's even kind of the point of this whole Squad Up series, right? Like, is we want to come together because we're better together, and how can we serve each other and edify each other and build each other up so that we can grow and look more and more like Christ. And so what's that look like in the home? And so for me, really been wrestling through, okay, so how am I serving my bride? How am I serving my daughter? But even thinking about when I was a high schooler, when I was in middle school, how I missed because I didn't know Jesus and because I was incredibly, like DJ knows, I was incredibly selfish. Like I was a different person than I am now. And so I missed opportunities to be Jesus in my family. I missed opportunities for them to see who Jesus is because not everyone in my family knows Jesus. And so those opportunities were missed for me. And I don't think as a movement, if we are truly a movement, that's what we can stand by, right? Like we need to come together and fight.
Why has it taken, for me, why has it taken a pandemic for me to realize the important people that are in front of me, the ones we're choosing, believing God has put everybody in my life for a reason. But it's taken this season for me to really look at how to love my family really, really well. I look at my past and then I see my past, and in my past I felt there was no hope. And so I often look at my family and feel like there's no hope. Like there's nothing that I can do that's going to change any of these situations. I've taken God out of a lot of those pieces. I've taken Jesus and what he can do in this
so
stuff
easy to do.
Yep.
It's so, because hey, it's hard. So what do? I operate out of my own strength because I am going to operate out of what I trust the most. And so if I need a battle buddy, I need somebody to help me in a battle, I'm going to get the person that I'm closest to that I know. I'll pull on this side. I'm going to get the person that I know and I trust the most to fight with me. And who do I trust more than myself? And I know the answer is supposed to be God, right? It's so easy to be it should be God. That's obvious. But at the same time, if I don't fully know God and I don't fully trust God and I don't fully lean on him on everything, well, it's going to be really hard when things get hard for me to trust in him and lean on him. I think about at home, right? Okay, so doing the dishes, simple way to look like Jesus, right? Without my parents asking, I could go and I could serve them and I could love them. But things are hard. I feel like people don't care about me because I'm an introvert, and I feel like people haven't reached out in the middle of all this crisis, and I'm over Zoom. And so why serve people when I feel like I'm not being served? And the tension is, okay, so who are you closest to and who are you leaning on in the middle of this to look like Jesus?
The big thing in myself is I start pointing this stuff out and having these conversations, and I can I've gotten so used to having community, the thing that's spoken over me, the thing that I'm supposed to be in, where I've learned how to lean on my community in such a strong way. In that, though, I've also missed what it looks like to lean on Jesus. And this season has caused me to focus on what that looks like and when I can lean on him. When he becomes enough, everything else is such a huge bonus. So what's it look like for me to create a community of people that are all there with me? And in that, naturally, we have this trust and understanding that we're all in that same place. We've all been struggling with some of that same stuff. We've all been isolated. We've all felt alone in this. But there's one person that has been there consistently.
Yeah, and that's it. That's so tough, man. Because God says, I'll never forsake you. I'll never abandon you. but it doesn't mean you will never feel forsaken and you will never feel abandoned, right? Like, I know that like that's something you've wrestled with. I've wrestled with it. Like what do you, DJ? What do you do when you feel abandoned? When you feel forsaken? You know it's not true, but those lies, they're sneaking in. They're whispering. The enemy loves this stuff. What do you do?
Again, I could say truth all day long. It has not affected the way I felt, and that is where I wrestled, because I do feel abandoned. I felt really, really alone. But the beauty of that is I have had friends in my life that feel alone too. And so when I can reach out to them and say, man, I'm really, really feeling this way, it's not even coming from a place where I'm sharing this and I'm being super vulnerable, because they feel the same way too. In that I feel connected. Instantly, I still feel as if I'm with them, if we're going through something really tough together. And so God has even reminded me in that what good people look like. Good people.
Yeah, I think that the other thing for me, man, is when I'm less focused on myself, I stop hurting as much as I am, right? Like I stop focusing on my pain, and if I focus on the pain of others, which is what Jesus called us to do, right? Like Jesus is fully man, fully God, and came to serve, not to just take over, not to lead by the sword. He came to serve. And so, man, there's a shift in heart for me that happens when I stop saying, okay, woe is me, like poor me, poor me, poor me. And I start saying, hey man, like look at all these people that are hurting. Look at my family who are going through the same thing as me. And what does it look like for me to be Jesus here? Like, what does it look like for me to serve them here? What does it look like for me to be someone like, yeah, I'm 5 years younger than my brother or sister, but what does it look like for me to have a conversation with them and just ask them, hey, how are you doing? Because when I get out of my own mess and my own stuff and I start helping others, God frees me so often of the things that I'm worried about and the things that are really beating me down.
It resembles Jesus. I focus on myself. I have been in this season where I have focused on myself a ton. I am sitting in a room alone, poor me, life stinks. But Josh, it's such a good point. Like the moment Jesus takes over, my thoughts start becoming about those around me and others. It has really, really allowed me to get out of that, get out of what the enemy is speaking over me, getting out of the untruth and the lies that he's sharing with me, and really what God is doing. You know, if I invite God into that, which is caring for others well, it becomes less about me and I start feeling a ton better.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the, like, who models this better than Jesus? Dude is on the cross, right? Like arms stretched out, nails in his hands, through his feet, and what does he do? He says, Lord, forgive them, they know not what they do. His mind through all of this is on them. And I think that's like, he is teaching us that one of the ways that we can get out of ourselves is by getting out of ourselves and focusing on other people.
People can come first in my life. Only imagine what Jesus could do. Like if I could just love from a place of this person across from me matters so much more. I can only imagine what Jesus will do. How would I feel, right? How would God be working through me? What would this season look like? Like how many different lives would change? We go back to our families, like when the thoughts come less about me and what I'm doing and what I can do for them, but more like what Jesus is doing through me. How can I love them really well? How can I focus on conversation with them? What can I serve them? Like, I've had to make dinner, which probably hasn't been best tasting, but still has showed them that, hey, I care enough to put some of my time aside for them. What does that look like to serve them well, but it's become about them?
So let's hold on real quick, and I want us for a moment to think about someone else. I want to think about this watermelon. DJ, what was his name again?
I call him Wilson.
This is Wilson. Let's zoom in on this guy real quick. He's not doing too good. I see there's some pressure going on in the chestal region, which if you've ever gone to a hospital, if you have some chest problems, you go straight to the back. It's very serious. It's not good what's going on with this. So DJ, what was his name again?
His name's Wilson.
Wilson. Okay, so tell me what Wilson is feeling right now.
It's that moment of he tried to bench press with no spotter, and
Rookie move. You can't do that.
the bar, he's being squeezed and he is in a lot of pain. And
And
from what I can hear,
Probably did too much too.
yes, a lot, way too
Trying to
much.
max rep.
He doesn't sound like he's too happy. He looks pretty sad.
DJ is the watermelon whisperer. Apparently he can talk to
Yes.
them. I don't
Remember, from 5 years old, I've been working with these guys.
I don't know what this does with your credibility with our students when you say stuff like this.
Just letting you know that all of our gifting is different. So.
So what is your spiritual gift? All right, so we are currently at about 160
Yes.
rubber bands around this guy. And so I know that we got a $25 gift card going to whoever is closest. It seems like he's still going strong, but there's some not goodness going on as well. And so just be ready. We don't know when this guy's gonna blow.
Wouldn't say he's going strong, but he's going.
He's
still there.
he's still gonna get where he's going. It just might not be as fast.
So,
All right, game on.
161.
And so, hey DJ, what are some ways, like back to the discussion before, what are some ways that students can focus on other people right now? Because I can't go out of my community right now and paint well, maybe you could paint a home, but like there's not a ton of missions, things that are at least obvious to us. Like, what do we do as students?
I think the cool piece is this quarantine or this pandemic has forced us to get more creative. It's forced me to really,
Hence
really,
the watermelon.
yes, but Wilson deserved it. But
Yeah, this coming. This is 13 years coming.
it has forced me to really, really think about how much I care about the person across from me. Like, it's easy for me to say, hey, every day I meet with you, so let's meet and have conversations and be intentional
Yeah.
about it. And, oh, I'll buy you a coffee because we're right here and this is what we do every day. But how much do I really, really know the person across from me? Like, Josh, like, how do I love you? I have to know you to love you. And so it forces me to say, okay, outside of A, B, and C, what does Josh like? So I know Josh is an outdoors person, so kind of tough. But I know just a text message to tell him that I care about him is huge.
Yeah, 100%.
And so it's really, really forced me to think about others' needs that aren't right in front of my face, that aren't the simple, everyday things.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that we're focused on, like what do people love and what do we see in scripture? Like one of the ways that people serve so often, it's throughout scripture. It's not just New Testament, it's Old Testament, it's all over the place is, hey, let's eat together and I'm gonna make you a meal. I even think of Peter's mother-in-law who was healed, and it says immediately after she was healed, she got up and she waited on them, right? And so what does it look like for us in our homes to wait on our family? And that's one of the reasons with Squad Up, with this series, in a couple weeks, we're actually having a cooking together over Zoom. And did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Sorry, he's just in the dark with some of this stuff. It's all right. We're just gonna bring it all to the light right now. But we're having a cooking where we are all getting together over Zoom, and you guys are all invited. It's in an email that your parents received, and so just ask them about it. I'm also gonna post it on Facebook and Instagram. But we're gonna have a cooking class where all the students get together over Zoom, and we make these gourmet, just incredible meals. I've heard things like lasagna soup, which I kid you not, it sounds crazy. It's one of the best meals my wife has ever made, and she cooks really, really well. Some people might be doing steak, some people might be doing burgers. Like, it's gonna be all over the place. You're gonna have the choice of what meal, but you're gonna have the chance to spend time cooking for your family. And also cleaning up the mess that you make, because probably we'll make a little bit of a mess. It's just gonna be so fun. But that's just one example of, hey, how do we serve? Well, mom and dad, they probably cook for you every day. And so what does it look like for you to say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna step up today, and not to scorekeep, right? Because that's the tension. Like, DJ, if you're like me, scorekeeping is really easy. Here's what that is. I do something and then you owe me, right? Like, okay, so I did the dishes, so I'm good to play the Xbox for the rest of the day. And it's like, no, that's not what love is, right? Like, love is altruistic, which means love is I'm going to sacrifice without without payment needed. I'm gonna do it without getting anything back.
If I don't need anything in return to love you. I just want to love you to love you. And so how can we do that? Like, how can it be dishes? Can it be cooking? Can it be cleaning or vacuuming? Maybe I sacrifice playing the Xbox or PlayStation today because I just want to focus on what you've been doing. I think often, and I know in my life, like, my parents have been the ones that are really, really good at asking questions. And so in the midst of them asking me questions and how I'm doing in life, I missed the mark in returning. Like, how are you doing? Like, what's it look like for me to be intentional to say, hey, like, this morning or today, I'm going to wake up and have my coffee with you. And I want to know how you're doing. Like, what is Jesus saying to you? Like, how has this pandemic affected you? Are you stressed? Think about our parents and their jobs. Like, a lot has affected them too, and their priority is us. Their job is to focus on us and love us well. But how do I walk with them in their struggles and coming alongside them to say, like, this isn't just you guys here and then me here as my, like, you're my parents, so you're up here, but we are a team. We operate together.
Yeah, and what's so cool about that is, like, as students, you have this incredible opportunity that you won't always have, because, like, someday you'll probably be married, okay, and your priorities shift, right? Like, God first, and then it'll be your bride or your husband, and then it'll be your children and your parents. Like, they're still a priority, they're still super important, but things shift. And right now, they're kind of your number two. Like, they're kind of like you're their number two, right? God and then you. Hopefully that's the order that it goes in. And so what, like, we need to have that same, like, as children, as students, we can't just be consumers. Like, God doesn't say, hey, you know what? I'm going to feed you, and I'm going to feed you, and I'm going to feed you, and you're just going to sit there and get fat. Like, that's not the expectation. The God is, I'm going to feed you, like, with my word to give you spiritual energy so that you can go out and take ground for my kingdom. It's where we wake up and we say, God, where's the next hill? Like, what's the next hill that you want me to take? I think of Caleb and Joshua as they're going out and, like, into the promised land. Caleb, like, the land that he chose in the promised land was the one filled with giants. Because he was like, no, like, I'm not scared. Like, God is with me. Like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go kick butt for the kingdom, because that's who I am and that's what I do. And what does it look like for us to do that right now when we're like, hey, we're on lockdown and it stinks. Like, it sucks. Like, we're being honest. Like, I don't love it. Like, God, why are you allowing this to happen? And maybe it's to reset the home. And students, we can't just be consumers in that, but we have to be active participants in that. What's it look like? Okay, so mom, like, our relationship isn't good. Let's figure it out. What better time, like, for such a time as this? Like, dad, like, we don't hang out anymore. Well, you know what? Dad's working from home now, and now we have time. I'm not in school. Like, use the time that we have, because we're not always gonna have it. Watermelon check real quick, and then I know you got something to say. How we doing?
We're at about 2:30, let's say. Yeah, we have about 2:30.
That's 2:20. 2:20.
He's still holding in there. Not doing too well, but we're getting there. I kind of want to push on him, but I also don't want it to explode yet in my face. So
nice. And I lied. It's actually 2:40.
2:40.
Yeah, listen, I'm a student pastor. I'm not a math major. I don't numbers and stuff.
We're counting. Just so you know, we're counting and talking. It's impressive. Another gift.
Listen. Another click. Yeah, it's all up here. It's all up here.
Absolutely. The thing is, it doesn't just happen overnight. I can't expect to one day to have a bride, or one day you guys are going to have husbands and you're going to have kids, and to expect you're going to be able to just start serving, right? It starts now. Like, God has given us the opportunity now to learn how to serve, continue to grow in serving. So when those things happen, we don't just expect it to change overnight. I can't expect to just be better tomorrow. I have to do the things that God has given me today, opportunities that He's given me today. Like, looking at this pandemic, there's just such this negative thing around it, but God could be doing such a work in us and teaching us. He could be speaking so loudly to us. Are we at a place to really hear and be intentional about, again, like Josh said, the time He's giving us? So am I taking the steps to better myself, to love my family well? So one day in my future, this is a natural thing. This part of Jesus has become who I am.
Yeah, I think about, like, dude, because I remember when I left high school, one of my big prayers to God, because I'm selfish, was, God, give me a girl. Like, and don't just give me a girl, give me the girl. Like, I'd never really wanted to just date. Like, I always wanted to find that person. And it took so long, like way longer than I wanted, to meet my bride, Jenny. Like, it took forever. And I was just like, God, like, why is this taking so long? And it took somebody sitting down with me and having a conversation saying, Josh, you know what? Like, you're probably just not ready. And it wasn't she's not ready. No, it was Josh, you're probably not ready. You're not the guy that she would want to be married to yet. And like that whole time, God was preparing me to be the husband that I was meant to be. And I'm still figuring it out, right? Like, I still mess this up all the time. You don't have to say so like emphatically, like, oh my gosh, that's hurtful. But like God's still preparing me and making me the man. But here's the reality, and my wife and I, we've talked about this, is if Jenny had met me while I was in college, she would have hated me. I wasn't a good guy. Like, I wasn't walking with the Lord. Like, I was living in my sin. I was doing my own things. I was a total tool. And in that moment, if I had met a girl that was willing to marry me, she wouldn't have been the amazing woman that I got to marry 5 years ago. And that's just a testament of God's timing is perfect, but we have to use his timing to mature, and we can't just sit on our laurels. And like DJ was saying, so God is preparing us to be the servants we are called to be. Who better to practice on than your parents?
Absolutely. Your parents, bad as it sounds, your parents are forced to love you, kind of. So like,
that's not Lila, look at me. It's not true, sweetie. I choose to love you. You're amazing. Don't listen to DJ. He doesn't have kids. He doesn't know. All right, go on, buddy.
They're kind of stuck. At least in the house with you right now, they are stuck there with you. And so this is a time to, we say practice, but man, like, we get to serve them. We get to give back for all the incredible things that they've done in our lives. And really just kind of even reflect on that. The more I can reflect on who Jesus is and who Jesus has been in my life, the more I want to serve him and grow closer to him and be a part of him. I think it works with your parents as well. Like, when you can really sit back and just start having a thankful heart for what they're doing and start being thankful for the everyday decisions that they make, you'll start to want to pursue and to love at that capacity. So you're given this time, like, we have all of this stuff going on around us. What are we doing? What are we doing to be the hands and feet of Jesus? Like, let's not, I think often, like, when I start thinking about this, it's, again, I think of missions trips and just, again, my everyday life that is going out, and now I'm serving because that's what I'm called to do at church. That's what I'm called to do around my church people. But my mindset isn't the same at home. But I think home should be my first mission field.
100%. Like that, I say this all the time. My second ministry is student ministry. My first ministry is my home. Like, I have to shepherd my home well, and knowing that I don't always do it perfectly, but like, that is my calling that I'm supposed to live out. I've been like, as you were talking, I kind of like, I feel like maybe I was just thinking, maybe the Lord was impressing it on my heart, but I'm thinking of Joseph. Like, dude knew what it was like to be isolated, right? Like he was the dad's favorite, and he got this coat saying pretty much that I'm dad's favorite. And so his brothers gang up on him. They throw him into a cistern, like this pit, and then they sell him into slavery, and so he becomes a slave. And then, like, his coat gets taken by this lady. He had a coat problem. I don't know what the deal was with that. And ends up going in prison. Not his fault at all. Like, the whole time, though, we even look at in prison, and while he was a slave and while he was with his brothers, the entire time, Joseph was just trying to serve. Like Joseph was just trying to be close to the people around him, and like constantly getting betrayed, constantly getting backstabbed, constantly like having the wrong thing done to him in the midst of like he's one of like I think he's the only major character in the Bible other than Jesus where a sin isn't really seen in him. Like it obviously he's human, so he sinned at some point, but like it's not something that's described because Joseph was so focused on others. And then I think about, so his brothers come back after all this happens. He's been sold into slavery, he's been thrown into prison, and it's his brother's fault. Like his brothers started this whole thing, and the brothers come in this year of famine, and Joseph, being like the second in command of Egypt now, has all this stuff because God gave him a vision of what was about to happen. And the brothers come and they say, hey, not recognizing him, hey, we need food. Like we need like stuff for like we'll pay you, we need food. And Joseph at the end of it invites his brothers to live with him in Egypt, gives them all the food and all the comfort they could ever hope for, and they didn't deserve it. But Joseph said, no, I'm gonna reconcile, I'm gonna draw them back to me, I am going to choose my family, I'm gonna choose Jesus, I'm gonna choose to serve. This guy didn't make it.
Doesn't count. It stays there.
Yeah,
Doesn't count. And you look back and it's because of what Joseph was doing prior to the pandemic, prior to the world crashing, because of his relationship with the Father, because of his heart. He's serving and he's putting things in place. So when this comes, which Joseph didn't know it was coming, right? But when the pandemic comes, that he put this stuff away. He put himself in position to be able to serve. He put himself in a position to be able to love. And
watermelon check. But to finish that thought, like he was intentional, right? Like I had a conversation with a buddy of mine early on, a couple years ago, and he said, like, isn't organic better than intentional, right? Like, because like if it naturally happens, isn't that better? Like if we're naturally friends, isn't that better? Organic is good, intentional is better. Like if I'm intentional, I'm not just going to hope we go in the right direction. I'm going to be intentional about making us go in the right direction. Like I'm going to shepherd, I'm going to lead, I'm going to love, I'm going to fight for. It's about taking what you naturally have, like you've been given the family that you've got, whether you like it or not, and taking what you naturally have, what God has given you, and making the most of it and being intentional. Which, speaking of making the most of it, tell us about this watermelon.
He's a fighter. He has defined gravity.
I don't know what defining gravity has to do with anything. First of all, if you were to defy gravity, still doesn't make sense. But to define it, like, this is a very philosophical watermelon. This is the Webster of watermelons.
He can do it all. I'm telling you, he can do it all. But he's still fighting. I'm having a hard time hearing him, but he's not happy.
He's sweating a little bit.
There's a lot. There is little pieces of him falling off in his skin, but he's still going.
I didn't think he'd make it this far.
How many of you guys say that every day during this pandemic? But here we are,
spiritual
still
lesson.
going. Still going. Hey, another gift. Another one. Okay.
Never give up. Because the lesson is never give up.
Don't stop.
Unfortunately, as much as Wilson fights, I think he's got something bad coming real quick.
Yeah.
He's sweating all through these rubber bands. Like, look at this side.
Oh yeah, definitely. See, I felt something earlier, but not so much. But we're getting there. We are getting there. He is starting to slowly. So.
All right. Game on.
Game on. For us to start like processing and praying through what it looks like to be intentional in the household.
I love that you even just use that word, pray. Like how often do you pray for your parents? How often do you pray for your brother and your sister? How often do you pray for your girlfriend or your boyfriend? And you got all these people that God has said, hey, you should pray for them, right? and you care about them, but do you care enough about them to pray for them?
I also think I'm very expectant that my parents are going to be the ones providing my prayers, and so God is going to be using them. So God, help me with A, B, and C. Well, God is going to use my parents because they're the providers in my life to do it. So to pray for them with the expectancy that like God used me to love them well, this is going to explode.
Did we sign waivers before this? Like what? Like
I didn't sign anything.
I'm gonna be honest, guys. You want to talk about serving well? We are here at our own risk. Like this is about to go down. I think we're over 400 now. Like this is 500. These rubber bands. That's how much it'll get us to. We're here at our own risk to serve you guys, to love you guys well.
To share a crazy statistic and shots.
That got me right in the throat. All right, share the statistic.
Well, I lied because he wasn't there yet, but watermelons last 200 to 400 rubber bands. Wilson made it longer. I'm telling you, this guy was the guy. It tastes really good.
It is. It tastes like a watermelon.
Honestly, going into this, I thought we were gonna walk away before it exploded. And I wore a nicer shirt. My shirt is ruined.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't see that coming. It hit me in the throat and my eyeballs. They sting a little bit. Did you know your eyes actually have a weird sense of smell? Like if you ever have like peppermint near your eyes, you can like smell the peppermint through your eyes. Fun fact, just don't touch the peppermint to your eyes because DJ did that one time. It's not smart. It'll hurt a lot. But I can taste the watermelon a little bit.
And look at this. That's kind of neat. Honestly, that's kind of neat.
Oh, that's probably what hit me in the throat. That's gotta be what hit me in the throat, dude. It hurt. I got hit hard, man. I'm telling you. It was a direct hit. I was like, oh no.
I did not know that would happen. That's kind of cool. It's a ball.
Yeah, that came out great.
Wow. So.
All right. So we'll do a final count. We'll post that. We'll post that right here of the final count. All right, guys. Well, hey, if you were the closest, doesn't matter if you were over or under. That doesn't matter. If you were the closest guest, we've got a $25 gift card to Cane's with your name on it. We'll be mailing that to you. Other than that, DJ, what last words? I know it's too late for Wilson to have any last words, but what last words would you like to share with everybody?
Wilson, I'm sorry. You've done a lot. We've been together a lot, and for real though, what's it look like to be intentional with the person right in front of you?
And even though he was joking about saying sorry to a watermelon, maybe serving and maybe loving starts with asking for forgiveness and not waiting for them to say sorry, or not waiting for them to do whatever to make up for it, or not waiting until you have just decided to, like, you need something, and so now you need to ask forgiveness. Like pushing all that aside and saying, hey, I'm so sorry. Will you please forgive me for the way that I've been behaving, or for judging you, or for casting you aside, or not caring for you in the way that I meant to. Like God calls me to, right? Like honor thy mother and father. Like that's a commandment. That's not a low priority on God's list of things, because the way that we love our parents will often reflect the way that we choose to love God. And so you are in a season, students, of practicing, right? Because right now you've got this freedom to fail. Like if you mess up at your job, you're not gonna not be able to pay rent and lose a home, right? And like if you mess up in a relationship, well, the good news is you're probably not married yet, but you're gonna mess up in marriage too. So now practice when you mess up, how do I make amends? When things are going well, how do I make them better? Like, how am I Jesus, not just now, but in every single situation? Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. DJ, go ahead and send them off for us.
Have fun and fly safe.